I think the traditional answer is that it's a pretty broad discipline, right? Computational discipline. You're looking at trying to mimic certain patterns or workflows or behaviors that a human might do, right? Using, for lack of a better word, algorithms. Um, I think when you look at the sort of history of artificial intelligence, it's been around for a long time, right? Even Turing way back, right? He's sort of coming up with the Turing test, thinking through what could artificial intelligence actually look like. Like it's out there. Um, I would say relevant for this context and our industry. The easiest way to sort of break it down is by thinking through the different forms or flavors of artificial intelligence, right? Like ways to mimic a particular human workflow or things like that. Um, in the past, the old architectures of technologies used to be things like machine learning models where you just take a bunch of data and then you try and extrapolate out patterns from that data. Um, or natural language processing, which is a similar version of that, but you're looking at sort of semantic language blocks and saying, okay, these semantic language blocks are very similar to one another. Um, all of these things are typically powered by architecture that's called like neural networks. So really, how do I describe it? Nodes of thinking blocks that are interconnected and can affect one another. Excuse me, I actually did some neural networks when I was in high school. So it's been around for a long time. I just dated myself. I think the larger change has come when you're looking at like large language models, or now these days like small language models. All right, with DeepSeek and sort of thinking through how do you take larger context windows and a much broader set of data, and in large language models cases, kind of the entirety of the English written history, right? Saying, okay, within the context of the entire written English history, if you had to pull out a pattern in response to something that you put in or a prompt, right, what would come out, right? And magically it just kind of comes out in a way that makes sense, right? So that's where I would say, like, you know, uh, that's been sort of breakthrough over the last few years in understanding that this flavor or version of artificial intelligence just happens to be something that is able to cross that barrier of, oh, there's actually the output actually feels like some real human is actually thinking and processing and making sort of connections the way that the human would. Um, uh, where will it go? I don't know, right? But I might argue that uh, one thing is for sure. I think everything will become AI native or AI powered or large language model influenced in some way, shape, or form. In much the same way that like when the internet came out, you know, the newest and greatest tools were like, we're the first internet powered software, right? That's like, okay, yeah. Right now it's just software, right? Similarly, when mobile came out, it's like, oh, we're mobile and social, right? And local. Uh, there's that Silicon Valley uh, meme. Um, and now it's just software, right? Same thing, right? I think we call ourselves AI native, but at some point it will just be software. I don't love offering broad-based judgments around why something is just generally exciting, because it's really an opinion for it's a personal opinion, right? So I can say why healthcare is exciting to me, right? I'd say for very personal reasons, right? Around my family and others that I interact with, uh, healthcare is very it's just played a critical role in my past life into being able to see how technology, software, and now artificial intelligence can improve like healthcare outcomes. That's what really excites me. That makes me feel really that gives me some degree of passion. Um, if you zoom out a little bit, I think what's really fascinating is historically, I would say healthcare data is uh, probably one of the largest sources of data if you just look at how do I describe it? Like the corpus of data, right, around the world. A large chunk of it is healthcare data, right? Um, And I would say historically, the patterns of that data have been largely viewed with the perspective that data is trash, right? Or that data is maybe trash is too strong of a word, but it's hard to read or really difficult to work with. Um, and that's where I think, again, with large language models and sort of the power and ability that they've unlocked, you have this now moment in time where what used to be garbage in is no longer garbage out. You, with speed and with scale and with efficacy, you can actually have artificial intelligence tools that can synthesize like the large chunk of that data and with a much higher degree of accuracy and context and relevancy, pull out information that's really useful for clinicians as they care for those patients. Right. So for the first time in a long time, you have this sort of inflection point where all this data that has been generated so far by clinicians or scribes or medical assistants or whatever, like it's suddenly now useful or it can be used and synthesized to a point where a human can critically use it quickly. So that the moment in time is really exciting, and as far as that. Kevin, our CTO, he really early on in Keebler's history or lifespan, he shared the Gartner's analytics framework, right? It's sort of this framework that exposits how analytics tools can evolve into higher levels or iterations of usefulness over time, right? Where really early on, it's really just kind of descriptive, right? An analytics tool or framework might be just descriptive. It just tells you what's happening, right? Then you have diagnostic, which is the next tier up, right? Where that analytics tool and that data might be able to tell you not just what's happening, but why that's happening, right? And then next level up after that is predictive, right? So not only is it able to tell you what's happening, but why something's happening, but also, what will happen in the next 3, 6, 9 months, right? And the last sort of upper echelon tier is prescriptive, like, okay, you should do this, right? Saying, okay, yeah, because in 3, 6, 9 months, this patient might decompensate in XYZ ways, intervene with ABC interventions, right? Or something like that, right? Um, I think to sort of the earlier point around having tons of now healthcare data that was previously, I think the narrative is that it was previously inaccessible or at least difficult to access insights out of. The large language model or small language model sort of rollout um, or innovation inflection point is allowing us to take those gobs of healthcare data and push all the way to prescriptive analytics really quickly. Whereas before you would need really, really highly tuned machine language or NLP based models to do a very specific workflow that was very, very tiny. Now all of a sudden, sort of flexibility, right, and usefulness of some of these models becomes way more applicable across a broader spectrum of things. Right? So all of a sudden, like the ability to do like broad-based prescriptive analytics, just the ease at which we can get there just really leveled up. Um, so I think that's where if you're really looking towards where everything is headed, right? I think groups that are able to leverage artificial intelligence like infrastructures to get there faster, I think that's where we're going to see some winners.